In 2025, the world said goodbye to one of reality TV's most iconic figures, Phil Robertson, the unfiltered patriarch of Duck Dynasty, and the man who brought Bayou living into millions of homes. Known for his deep faith, rugged wisdom, and unapologetic way of life, Phil left behind more than just a television legacy. He left a lasting impact on American culture. As fans mourn his passing, many are also reflecting on the extraordinary life he built. A devoted marriage, 5 children, a rustic yet impressive estate, and a net worth that surprises even his critics. Phil Robertson lived a life that defied convention, trading gridiron glory for the quiet lure of the Louisiana wilderness. In the 1970s, he channeled that passion into invention. Frustrated with the quality of duck calls on the market, Phil built his own, one that mimicked the real sound of a duck with uncanny precision. That single act of ingenuity gave birth to Duck Commander, a company built not on corporate polish but on faith, family, and Phil's no-nonsense, backwoods wisdom. What started in a dilapidated shed grew into a multi-million-dollar empire of hunting gear, outdoor merchandise, and eventually, TV fame. That fame came crashing in like a flock of mallards when Duck Dynasty premiered on A&E in 2012. Phil, with his long beard, camo gear, and Bible-thumping conviction, became the gritty anchor of a reality show that captivated millions. The Robertson clan, with their southern drawls and unfiltered antics, delivered something different: authenticity, tradition, and faith served up with humor and a touch of chaos. Over 11 seasons, Duck Dynasty became more than a TV show. It was a pop culture juggernaut that sparked conversations, inspired parodies, and generated hundreds of millions in merchandise sales. Phil Robertson passed away on May 25, 2025, at the age of 79. He left behind a legacy that spanned far beyond duck calls and reality TV. He was a man who built a brand on simplicity, authenticity, and conviction. Values he never compromised, no matter how large the spotlight grew. Net worth of $10 million at the time of his death. Phil Alexander Robertson was born on April 24, 1946, in the tiny northern Louisiana town of Vivian, where the bayou air was thick and the luxuries of modern life were in short supply. One of 7 children, Phil grew up in a home where electricity, indoor plumbing, and a bathtub were unheard of. But hardship wasn't a burden in the Robertson household. It was a lifestyle, and a joyful one at that. Groceries didn't come from stores, they came from the land. Squirrel stew, freshly caught fish, and venison were the daily norm, with garden-grown vegetables and wild fruit rounding out the family table. As Phil would later write in his memoir, "Happy, happy, happy." It might have been the 1950s, but we were living like it was the 1850s, and loving every minute of it. Though his roots were humble, Phil had more than just a knack for survival. He had raw athletic talent that couldn't be ignored. In high school, he excelled in football, baseball, and track. His prowess on the gridiron earned him a football scholarship to Louisiana Tech University, where he became the starting quarterback. Sitting behind him on the depth chart was none other than Terry Bradshaw, a future NFL Hall of Famer. Phil led the team in 1966 and 1967, but by 1968, something more primal was calling to him: the woods. Despite being approached by none other than Paul Harvey with an offer to try out for the Washington Redskins, Phil turned down a shot at pro football. Why? Because it interfered with duck season. For Phil, hunting wasn't just a hobby. It was a way of life, a spiritual rhythm that no paycheck could replace. Phil Robertson didn't leave college empty-handed, though. He earned a bachelor's degree in physical education and went on to get his master's in education. But it wasn't classrooms or locker rooms where his future lay. His real classroom was nature, and his calling wasn't coaching. It was carving out a life that honored the simple, rugged, and faith-driven world he came from. What would follow would be a duck call, a dynasty, and a legacy built not from fame or fortune, but from fierce independence and an unwavering belief in living authentically. After earning his degrees, Phil Robertson stepped into the role of teacher for a time, trading the woods for the classroom. But it didn't take long for him to realize that his soul belonged elsewhere. Teaching gave way to commercial fishing, a better fit for a man who'd always been more comfortable on the water with a line or a shotgun than behind a desk. But the heart of his story was yet to unfold. Phil was a man who took duck hunting seriously, some might say religiously. But there was something about the duck calls available at the time that just didn't sit right with him. To Phil, they sounded more like a confused kazoo than an actual duck. So, like any self-reliant outdoorsman, he decided to fix the problem himself. In 1972, he invented what would become the legendary Duck Commander call. A year later, he secured a patent and officially launched the Duck Commander Company out of a humble operation in West Monroe, Louisiana. That once small business grew into a multi-million-dollar empire, thanks in large part to the hard work of his family, especially his son Willie, who took over as CEO. The Robertson name and their unique brand of Bayou wisdom shot into the national spotlight in 2012 when A&E debuted Duck Dynasty, a reality series following the bearded clan's business, faith, and wild family dynamics. The show ran for 11 seasons until 2017, turning a duck call into a cultural symbol and the Robertsons into unlikely celebrities. Despite the fame, Phil never strayed far from his roots. He still works alongside his wife, Miss Kay, and their 4 sons, keeping the family business true to its gritty, old-school values. His memoir, Happy, 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 climbed to the top of bestseller lists and sold nearly 1 million copies, offering a glimpse into the life of a man who traded touchdowns for timber and duck blinds. Before the reality show, Duck Commander sold around 60,000 duck calls a year. By 2012, sales skyrocketed to 600,000. And during duck season, true to his superstition, Phil refuses to shower or shave for 10 straight weeks, a ritual he swears brings him good luck in the blind. But fame came with fire. In December 2013, Phil gave an interview to GQ magazine that stirred national controversy. His remarks, viewed by many as offensive and homophobic, led A&E to suspend him from Duck Dynasty indefinitely. That indefinite suspension lasted all of 10 days. The backlash from fans was swift and overwhelming, and by December 28th, A&E reversed its decision and welcomed Phil back to the show. Through it all, Phil stood by his beliefs, while also expressing that he respected and loved people from all walks of life. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is certain. Phil Robertson never pretended to be anything other than who he was. A straight-shooting, duck-hunting, God-fearing man with a gift for building calls, raising a tight-knit family, and turning a simple Southern life into an American empire. Despite their wealth and fame, Phil Robertson, the grizzled patriarch of the Duck Dynasty empire, and his wife Kay, have spent the entirety of their marriage living in the same humble double-wide mobile home tucked away in the woods of West Monroe, Louisiana. While the outside world may expect millionaires to trade up to marble mansions or skyline penthouses, the Robertsons never did. Instead, they chose simplicity over splendor and comfort over extravagance, creating a home that reflects their roots, values, and a lifestyle grounded in faith, family, and the outdoors. The mobile home itself isn't flashy, but it's honest. Sitting quietly beneath a canopy of towering pine trees, the exterior is weathered but well kept, with a wide porch that wraps around the front, often lined with rocking chairs and boots left out to dry. The American flag flutters from a pole. Out front and just beyond the porch, the land stretches into thick woods and swampy terrain where Phil has hunted ducks for decades. It's not unusual to hear a dog bark in the distance or the soft rustle of wildlife in the underbrush. This is not just a house. It's the heart of a rural kingdom built on duck calls and old-school grit. Step through the front door, and you won't find gold-plated faucets or Italian marble countertops. What you'll see instead is warmth, walls covered in family photos, taxidermy mounts from successful hunts, and wooden shelves sagging slightly under the weight of well-used Bibles and cookbooks. The living room, though modest in size, serves as the central hub. There's a deep, overstuffed couch, a recliner that's clearly seen countless football games and naps, and a coffee table often cluttered with cups of sweet tea and duck hunting. Magazines. The carpet may be worn, but it's clean. The vibe is lived in, not staged. The kitchen is surprisingly spacious, the true soul of Miss K's domain. It's not modern or sleek, but it's functional and overflowing with character. Pots and pans hang above the stove, and her famous cast-iron skillet is always within reach. The fridge is a gallery of magnets, grandkids' drawings, and reminders scribbled on notepads. This kitchen has churned out decades of Southern staples: fried catfish, gumbo, biscuits from scratch, and it's where family feasts begin and end, with Kay at the helm, humming old hymns as she stirs. The bedrooms, tucked down a narrow hallway, are simple and quiet. The master bedroom is cozy with a patchwork quilt, soft lighting, and a wooden dresser that holds decades of memories. There's a sense of peace here, a reflection of two people who have weathered storms and joys together in the same four walls for over 50 years. Other rooms are used for visiting grandkids or storage, filled with keepsakes from a life well lived and well loved. Outside, the land is where the magic continues. There's a smokehouse where Phil still cures his own meat, a duck blind that's never far from use, and an old shed where countless duck calls were invented and whittled into success. A small garden often grows tomatoes or greens, and there's always firewood stacked neatly near the side door, ready for cool nights or bonfire storytelling. What makes this home remarkable isn't its square footage or its market value. It's the sense of authenticity, of tradition preserved and values honored. Phil and Kay Robertson could have bought any mansion they wanted, anywhere in the world. But they chose to stay grounded, literally and figuratively, in the soil that raised them. Their home, this double-wide wrapped in woods and love, stands as a testament to the belief that happiness isn't measured in granite countertops or chandeliers, but in loyalty, simplicity, and the warmth of family under one small roof. When it comes to lifestyle, few live it as authentically as Phil Robertson. His days are filled with the grit of the Louisiana wilderness, hunting, fishing, working the land, and the trucks he drives are as much a part of that life as his camo jacket or duck call. Among the many vehicles that have rolled through his rugged routine, two trucks stand tall: the Ford F-150 and the Chevrolet Silverado. These aren't just pickups, they're extensions of the man himself, each built to handle the wild rhythm of a life spent outdoors. The Ford F-150 isn't just America's favorite truck for no reason. It's a legend of strength and dependability, and it suits Phil to a T. With its brawny engine lineup and formidable towing capacity, this is the kind of vehicle that laughs in the face of a heavy trailer stacked with gear, or a boat ready for a morning on the bayou. Whether it's hauling equipment through muddy trails or just navigating the winding roads of the backwoods, the F-150 is up for the challenge. Its interior might surprise those who haven't been in one recently. Roomy, comfortable, and designed to make long drives feel like short trips. Sure, modern versions come loaded with screens and tech, but you get the feeling that what matters most to Phil is the basics: rugged reliability, no-nonsense power, and the ability to keep going long after the pavement ends. Then there's the Chevy Silverado, a truck that wears its toughness like a badge of honor. Built like a tank but refined enough for daily driving, the Silverado strikes a perfect balance between brute strength and laid-back comfort. With a lineup of powerful engines under its hood, this truck doesn't just move, it muscles through any task thrown its way. Hauling loads, towing trailers, or forging through off-road terrain, it's all in a day's work. And inside, The Silverado's cabin is made to last, outfitted with materials tough enough to survive the mud, sweat, and wear of an outdoor lifestyle. It's a truck that fits naturally into a world where dirt roads are more common than highways, and where durability isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. For a man like Robertson, these trucks aren't status symbols or weekend toys. They're workhorses, tools, companions. They're meant to be driven through rain, across fields, and down dusty roads. Phil Robertson's life was never one of quiet simplicity. It was a storm of contradictions, redemption, grit, and deeply rooted beliefs. Long before the beards, the duck calls, or the reality TV stardom, there was a teenage boy falling in love with a girl named Marcia Caraway, known affectionately ever since as Miss K. They began dating in 1964 as high school sweethearts and tied the knot just 2 years later in 1966. But happily ever after wasn't exactly a straight line. Their early years together were far from idyllic. In the midst of college, a new baby, and the weight of growing responsibilities, Phil spiraled into a hard-living lifestyle fueled by what he would later call sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Alcohol took its toll, and the marriage suffered. A serious blow, even leading to a separation. But the man who once flirted with the wild side of life would undergo a transformation that reshaped his world. A profound religious awakening became the turning point. Phil turned his back on booze and chaos and stepped into the role of family man and devout Christian. He would go on to become an elder at the White's Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana, where his unapologetic sermons often echoed the same no-nonsense convictions that made him famous. Their first son, Alan, was born while Phyllis and Miss Kay were still in college. Over time, their union evolved into what many would call unbreakable. A Yahoo TV piece in 2013 referred to it as rock solid, despite its turbulent beginnings. Faith, forgiveness, and a shared purpose kept their marriage strong as their family and business empire grew. Robertson didn't just preach from the pulpit. He brought his convictions to the public stage. He was fiercely pro-life, often citing the Declaration of Independence in his opposition to abortion. In 2013, he published Happy, 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 a memoir co-written with Mark Schlabach that offered a window into the transformation from troubled young man to patriarch of a faith-driven empire. Politics, too, became part of Phil's platform. He made waves in 2013 when he endorsed Vance McAllister for Louisiana's 5th Congressional District. McAllister was a political unknown, but with Phil's endorsement and the Robertson family's star power behind him, he pulled off a surprise victory. In the years that followed, Phil threw his support behind Ted Cruz during the 2016 presidential campaign, and when Cruz exited the race, Phil shifted his endorsement to Donald Trump while traveling abroad in France. In 2017, he also endorsed controversial Senate candidate Roy Moore in Alabama. He even took on a leadership role in the conservative advocacy world. After Ben Carson stepped down as chairman of the Fight for the Court initiative by the American Legacy Center, Phil stepped in to fill the spot between late 2016 and early 2017. But perhaps the most unexpected chapter in his family story came in May 2020, when Robertson revealed that he had recently discovered he had an adult daughter, Phyllis, the result of an affair from the 1970s. True to his values, he didn't shy away from the revelation, choosing instead to embrace the news and welcome her into the family with open arms. As time marched on, even a man as rugged as Phil couldn't outrun the toll of age. In 2024, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. It was a heavy turn in a life marked by resilience. But even in decline, the legacy he built from the mud of Louisiana fields and duck blinds to television screens across the country remained firmly intact. Phil Robertson passed away on May 25, 2025, at the age of 79. The cause of his death wasn't publicly disclosed, but it was no secret that he had faced a number of health challenges in his later years, including a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. For a man who lived with such grit, conviction, and fire in his belly, the silence surrounding his final moments seemed almost poetic. He'd never been one for spectacle when it came to the personal stuff. His beliefs were loud, but his humility often quiet. His daughter-in-law shared that the family would be honoring him in two ways: a private service, kept close to those who knew and loved him best, and a public celebration of life, where fans and followers could pay tribute to the man who brought Bayou wisdom into millions of homes. It's a fitting farewell for someone who left his mark not only in duck blinds and church pews, but across television screens and hearts all over the country. Phil Robertson lived boldly, spoke plainly, and believed deeply. And when he left, he did so in the same way he lived, on his own terms, surrounded by faith, family, and legacy.